Good afternoon. It's Michael here from Michael's Card Art, and on this rainy Melbourne Friday afternoon, I've got a very simple technique for you, and it's one that will provide both texture and height for your cards if that is important to you. Now, for those of you who have seen my work, either on Instagram or on the various Stampin' Up websites, Facebook sites, you will know that I'm always banging on about height and texture. And for me, that's important. I know for some people, they don't really go for height and texture simply because of the problems that height and texture presents when posting off cards and various other items. The additional cost and also the impact to the card's integrity, example, getting squashed. I'll show you an example of what I mean. You know, something like this that I've created, where you can create something like this and you can glue it flat so that you just have a very standard one-dimensional type of card. But I like to fiddle around with it and create height and texture. And so sending something like this in the mail will need a padded envelope if you don't wish to destroy the integrity of the height and that you've created there. And likewise with the examples that I've got for you today. So you can ignore or you can adopt some of the techniques that I'm going to show you today. Now, we're going to play with flower containers or vases or jars, if you like. And I'll give you some examples of, I'll just move these out to the side. Here's an example of a card that I did, and this is from the set Welcoming Windows. So what I've done here is I've used the various stamps and dies and to create a three-dimensional image, if you like, with the containers. And you can see there that the containers are not sitting actually flat, nor are the flowers, and that there is a slight ridge and there's some height and texture there. And the same with this particular card that I did on linen. You can see here that the urn that I've used for this is not exactly sitting flat. And what you'll notice here is there's some embossing on the side of the urn, and see that it's sort of sitting in a raised position. And likewise with this one here, similar sort of thing, a much smaller urn, but you can see that it's sitting off the page. Now that's what I mean by height and texture, and that's what I strive for with all of my cards that I create. So I'm going to show you a technique that I've found, used, developed, whatever, and I'm sure it's been done before many times, but I haven't seen it lately on any of the YouTube channels from any of my other compatriots. So what we're going to do is take a two-dimensional or one-dimensional object, if you like, and show you the technique I use. It's a very short video, but hopefully it's something that you might want to try and reject or adopt in any future card craft that you make. Now, this one here is the Stampin' Up! Varied Vases set. And what I've done is I've taken a couple of the pieces and I've cut them out. And you'll notice that I have embossed some of them. Now, that embossing is a very simple process. So what I do first is I cut the object. Now, whether it's a vase, whether it's anything, I'll cut it. And then, in the case of these urns or vases, I've run them through an embossing folder. Now, for this particular one, I've used this Stampin' Up! Embossing folder, which is the Leaf Fall. And what I've done, just very simply, is I've taken each of the individual pieces, if you like, and placed them there, and I've placed them where I think there's going to be the greatest impact. For this one here, you can see clearly that I've placed it in this position to be imprinted with that flower, or that leaf, sorry, and then run it through the embossing folder to give you that. Right, so that's the second part of the process. I cut them, I then emboss them, and the third part is how do I shape them? Well, it's a simple process, and I basically just place them over a paintbrush. Anything round, a pencil, want to Stampin' Up, marking blends, whatever, that will give you this shape. And straight away you can start to see that this, when adhered to the cardstock, will have a slight beveling or raised surface, as you can see in any one of these particular images here. Then the next part, or the fourth part of the process, is the colouring. So how do we do that? Now, I'm not a great colourer, but I do like playing with the Stampin' Up colours. Now, I'm going to use, in this particular one, you can see here, it looks like browns, greens, reds and yellows feature, and that's exactly the case. So I'm going to be using, in this case, I'm going to use the Mango Melody. I'm also going to take, where is the colour gone? Mossy Meadow and Cajun Craze. So they're the three colours that I'll play with. Now, I will either use my finger to colour these, or a dauber. So let me show you how. Now, as we all know, light plays an important element in the colouring of anything. So what do I mean by that? If you look at this one here, you can see there's a light source over here coming in onto this urn, and hence why this is slightly lighter in colour here than this other part of it. You can see in a similar aspect here, and likewise here. So with this little container, you can see that it's lighter on this side, so the light source is coming in from here. Right, how do I do that? I take the container, I take an old dauber, and I'll start. Now, I don't necessarily always change my dauber as I'm working through this process, but I'll start with the edges of the urn first, just roughly giving it a bit of an outline. Okay, so we've started off. Now what I'll do is I'll assume that the light is coming in from this direction, and I'm going to cover that part of the urn, and I'm going to apply colours. Now let's be a purist, and let's have a dauber for each colour. Let me just move things back a bit. And so green and yellow. Now let's load up some colour, some green. And here we go. I'm just putting the next layer. Now, I'm all about, don't be too fanatical in terms of accuracy, because as we know, Mother Nature, when she ages an item, she doesn't do it very evenly. And myself is a perfect example of that. But by holding my thumb over a part of the urn, I'm resisting the amount of colour that the urn will receive in that particular spot. And it's a little heavy, but it doesn't matter, because with every sin in card craft, it's easily addressed. Okay, and you can start to see how the colours of your newly developed urn are starting to take place. Now, you will need to give it some colour in that lighter area, and so that's how I'll do that there. Just a slight daubing. I'll come around and finish that off a little bit there, and straight away you're starting to see how the colours blend and mash to give you quite an aged look about your newfound vessel. That's as simple as that. And straight away you can appreciate that that is by far and away more eye-catching than as if you just coloured it a single colour on there. And then the last part of the process is when I'm attaching that to the piece. show you what I do there. Very simply, I'll place a dimensional, and because it's a largish urn, I'll place 2 dimensionals in that center part there. Now, I could just leave it like that and attach it to the cardstock. However, in a lot of cases, I will glue around this edge, even across the bottom and there. I don't enclose the top with glue. And that allows me, by not putting glue at the top, it allows me to slide any amount of foliage into that space, as I've done there, very simply. And here's another example here. Whilst this has only been a single stalk, it's allowed me to place it in. It comes down to about here. In this case, what I did was, you can see that the mouth of the urn is open, but this was where I stamped the actual visual and then placed the urn over the top of that. So that's it for today. It's a simple technique, but I just wanted to share it with you. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something, and I hope to see you next time on Michael's Card Art. Thank you.